Hi, and welcome to another episode of eCom 1. Today's guest, Adam Chronister. Now, myself and Adam met, you won't believe it sounds like a joke, but we met in a Irish bar in the middle of Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, Saigon, about 10 months ago. And it was pretty clear that we have a similar business in that we both run SEO, digital marketing agencies, and we had very many conversations over that week. And I've not seen Adam since, so it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good. Well, as I mentioned on the intro, myself and Adam met about 10 months ago, when I think we actually first met in an Irish bar in Ho Chi Minh.
Right. Yep.
Which
yeah, we definitely had some good conversations
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but obviously at a conference, we talk about conferences a lot on the podcast, and the different conferences that I go to and we recommend here at eCom, on eCom 1. So I knew when we met, I've got to get you on the podcast. And so thank you so much for coming on, Adam. I think it'd be good for you to kick off. Introduce yourself to our listeners and how you got into the world of e-commerce and agency life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as mentioned, my name's Adam Chronister. I run a digital marketing agency based in the West Coast of the United States. Heavy focus on digital marketing and website design. I think we first talked a lot in Ho Chi Minh around e-commerce, because I know that's kind of your forte, and we do a pretty good share of that ourselves. I would say about probably more than 50% of our business is in e-commerce. Heavy focus on Shopify, WordPress with WooCommerce, and then everything around SEO, search engine optimization, and Google advertising. To pair those things. So yeah, we've been in business since around 2009. Really just enjoy helping businesses kind of understand, strategize, and unpack different opportunities for growth. So,
yeah, it sounds like a very familiar sort of story, because that's 2009 is when we set up our agency as well. It's uncanny. Yeah, it is 2009. Yeah, so I think it'll be 15 years in November for us. It will be. So we're
it goes by quick.
Doesn't it? Just when you say it out loud, it's like, wow.
Right.
Obviously, 15 years in this space. I talk about that first website back in the day when you build a site. It would take you maybe weeks to build the site and maybe half an hour to rank on page 1 of Google. Whereas now it's the opposite way around.
Yeah. Yep. I always tell people I'm a glutton for punishment, because there was a period where all my friends, everybody had SEO companies. And then there was one week, I forget if it was the Panda update, I forget which update, but the next week, all my friends stopped doing SEO and I was still doing it. Right. And here I am all these years later, like, I don't know if I just don't know when to call good, or if I'm a glutton for punishment, but no, it's been good. I've enjoyed the journey, challenges and all, right.
So what would you say has been the most sort of impactful change you've seen then? I mean, you talk about Google updates there. Is that maybe obviously some major leveling done in quite a lot of the updates? Would you say those updates are probably some of the biggest and most impactful things you've seen?
Just through the years, like you mentioned, like there used to be a time where SEO was quote unquote easy, right? Like you literally just, stuffed your way to the top with keywords. Those days have come and gone. And so yeah, like I know I was just on another podcast here recently, and we were talking about just the last couple months, the sheer amount of Google algorithm updates. I think I've seen more updates in the last 6 months than I've seen in the last 6 years from Google. So lots of volatility there. And then of course there's the whole realm of AI, right? So, if you don't like change, you probably shouldn't be in the web development and digital marketing industry, because it seems like we have nothing but change, right? So unfortunately for us, we love it, we embrace it. We have a lot of fun learning new strategies and technologies. But there are times where I'm like, okay, Google, could you just give us a month off from figuring out what's changing now? So
it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if it just gave us a month or so at the moment without anything major.
Yeah,
but I think
last month they had a little bit of a reprieve where they didn't have a core algorithm update. It was like, oh, I would catch my breath before the next next onslaught. So
yeah, it keeps us on our toes, doesn't it? I think, I guess that's why, we're both coming up to 15 years each, if you like. It's got rid of quite a few other agencies, I guess, that cope with the titles. I guess that sort of brings us on to potentially a couple of little topics there then. So obviously doing things the right way, you say, back in the day, we'd just, stuff our way to the top, and that was pretty much, putting the keyword in the title tag and a few bits and bobs on page. My gosh, next thing you know, you wake up and you'd be page one. Obviously, it's not that simple anymore, which is good. It's good for those that do it well, but obviously it can make it quite challenging in very competitive niches, which is obviously the sort of work I think we both like, the sort of almost the harder the better, I say, to our team.
Yeah.
Sort of work that, a lot of agencies might shy away from. But you talked about sort of AI there, in terms of an emerging trend. What would you say, how our listeners, ecom store marketeers, owners, how much sort of should they be taking note of AI at the moment?
I mean, I think honestly, everybody needs to be taking note of AI, even if they're not necessarily entrepreneurs or run an e-commerce store. But most definitely, if you have a brand, especially an e-commerce brand, I think it would behoove you to keep up to date with what's happening. Because chances are, if you're not utilizing some aspect of AI in your business, be it for supplication of content or shortcutting some of your processes, I can pretty much guarantee that there's probably some of your competitors that are using this to their advantage. So that's kind of my Reader's Digest answer to that.
Yeah, so that's the short version. That's the sort of advocacy of, and if you're not, you're probably getting left behind, especially in ecom, because you've got no doubt actually thousands, if not tens of thousands of SKUs. Just the SKU count alone and what's required content wise for those. Of course you can improve content on those.
It kind of removes the excuses for a lot of things, because I know, especially if you have an e-commerce brand, I've seen a lot of e-commerce brands where they really just they have like repetitive content across their products, right? Or the same descriptions or similar descriptions, and that makes sense, having that restraint. If you have thousands of products, it's a time consuming to go in and customize each product, let alone try to optimize it for a keyword and then write meta titles and descriptions, and don't even get me started with schema. But now with AI, you could literally like go through and create a little templated prompt and say, write a custom product description for product X, which is priced high. So I think in some cases it allows business owners and practitioners and even digital marketers to make better use of things that otherwise would get left behind just because of the sheer time it takes. To give you an example, one of the things that we have built amongst the many tools that we're working on is like a long form content creation tool. But this last weekend, inspired by a talk I saw from a conference I was at recently, I expanded that blog post generator to create ebooks, right? So within a matter of like 3 minutes, I was able to create a 33,000 word ebook on how to start a vacation rental company, right? Because that's something I do on the side. And so like, and I was my mind was kind of blown. Like I knew that this was a possibility and I had all the frameworks. I just didn't sit down to do it. But it just was like, wow, like I've always wanted to quote unquote write a book, but like really, I don't really want to do the work. I just want the accolades, right? I just want to say I did it, or use it for social proof. Well, now I can, and it still is just kind of blows my mind. Like, man, the things that you would never do before because the barrier entry were too difficult now is being simplified significantly, right? So.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, how many people want to sit there really and write a book? But then the reality is very nice.
People have ghostwriters. Well, my ghostwriter is AI, right? So
yeah. So ecom wise, then, so if we were gonna say give our listeners maybe two specific things, that AI, we're talking about content, it doesn't have to be content, but,
Right.
I'll leave it with you, Adam. Two specific things that our listeners could potentially go and do and leverage certain, whether that's ChatGPT or whatever you're suggesting, what would they be for an e-com store using AI?
Yeah. Well, not to hold too fast to this previous point, but number one, just to reiterate, is I would definitely utilize AI to write better descriptions for your products, right? So we already kind of touched on that. I won't belabor that, but that's one of the biggest things I see missed with e-commerce stores is there's not enough time in depth put into the product descriptions or even category pages, right? We see a lot of category pages with 1 or 2 sentences, maybe no content at all, just product listings. And so the more you can really strategize your category pages and your product pages around a particular keyword and theme, right? So that goes back to your original keyword research, which I'll expand in a moment. But the better you can do that, the better you're going to be, right? And so use those tools to your advantage. But before that, like I think, and this is kind of, what we do a lot in the realm of search engine optimization is we work with businesses to build really in-depth topical authority-based keyword research. And what I mean by that is basically it's a hierarchy of topics that support more competitive topics, right? So for instance, we're working with a big spice brand right now. And so we built a topical authority map focusing on their primary word, which is spices, right? And then we break it out into more long tail words like meat seasoning, right? And then you have, and then it just kind of trickles down from there, right? So having that strategy in hand at first is really important. That's where you kind of can make or break. And then using these tools to your advantage is also helpful. So.
Yeah, because like topical authority, topical maps, it's sort of it was probably one of the buzzwords last year, mate, and this year still. I think, especially after our trip to Saigon last year, it was some fantastic presentations on that. But obviously, it can be, and it is a very in-depth process if done manually. Building a topical map. Have you got any specific particular tools that you would recommend to help leveraging AI? We're talking about GBT, or we're talking.
Yeah. So what we do, and we have our own kind of proprietary custom keyword research that we're utilizing for building AI generated topical authority maps. But outside of that, like one of my favorite tools is a tool called ChatGPT for Sheets and Docs. Basically, what this does is it allows you to pull in ChatGPT into Google Sheets. And that then unlocks a lot of different really cool capabilities. So now instead of having just one single prompt where you have to run prompt after prompt after prompt, well, now you can start to do what I call prompt stacking, where I have multiple prompts that are layered inside of fields. You can then refer those to other fields or tabs. So for instance, we have a template that becomes our baseline where we typically will set up any piece of content we're writing, whether it's a blog post or that ebook, for instance. We set it up with 3 kind of core areas. One is the person of pronouns, so first, second, or third person, because that's going to change how the content comes out. Next is the persona, right? So if we're working with a brand, the persona is going to be the brand. An e-commerce brand with 10 years of experience in, let's say, dental products, right? That could be your persona. So person of pronouns, persona, and then your tone, right? So when I was creating this ebook, I did a little bit of research. I'm like, what tone should an ebook be in? The tone that was recommended is authoritative, right? Now a blog post might be more of a helpful tone. But anyway, that's a really cool tool I like. The way I describe it is it kind of takes AI or ChatGPT off the rails, so to speak. So check out Google ChatGPT for Sheets and Docs.
I just wanted to introduce you very quickly to our sponsors, Pricing. Now, Pricing is a competitor price tracking and monitoring software that can dynamically change a product's prices on all sales channels. They work with brands such as Samsung, Sony, Suzuki to increase their online revenue. Now, if you run Google Shopping, which I know a lot of you absolutely do, this software is absolutely key to accelerating profits. One of the reasons I recommend pricing to my clients is because you can find out your competitors' pricing and stock availability all in one simple to understand dashboard, giving you a huge competitive advantage. Now, if you have any inquiries and questions about this software, or you're ready to get cracking, we have worked out a very, very special deal for our listeners where you can get a 3 months trial and then 25% off for the first 3 months. Head to ecom1.com pricing and complete the inquiry form, and we will connect our listeners to the pricing team. Right, let's head straight back to the episode. Brilliant. So we're sort of looking at topical authority, topical maps using Sheets and using GPT in conjunction with Sheets, and then also using a similar stack to do product descriptions, because that's the challenge, isn't it? When you've got 10,000 SKUs, everyone does, they go, oh, can't be bothered to change those, or we're not going to invest the thousands of hours it's manually going to take. But obviously now, those that sort of have that first mover advantage and crack on and use an element of AI to change, whether it's 20% of your top SKUs, are going to have a big advantage, aren't they? So that's great. So I know you've just come back from, I saw that you were speaking at Traffic and Conversion. Was that a couple of weeks ago?
That was here just last week. So
so how was that? How was that? I've never been. How was that expo?
Yeah, it was my first time attending that as well, and the opportunity to speak, which was great. No, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the event. It was different than most of the events I go to. I end up going to a lot of like very technical SEO events, and there obviously was a share of that there. But I think with traffic and conversions, it's a lot more broad, right? So there are people talking on different disciplines, from social media marketing to email marketing. No, it was great. I think the thing I liked about it, mostly was a lot of the networking. There's kind of two core communities I'm a part of. There's the kind of the underground affiliate / black hat SEO industry. Right. And then there's another group, which is more like agency, like growth path. And so I got to see people from kind of those two pockets of communities I'm involved with, but at the same conference. So it was cool.
It's a big conference, isn't it? Like, is it 4,000 plus?
I think 4,000 to 5,000 people roughly. Which I was surprised, because I was, a couple people who had been there previously said, it's much smaller this year. I was like, oh, wow. Well, this is one of the bigger conferences I've been to. So if this is small,
that's a big.
You can only imagine.
ClickFunnels was the bigger. I think ClickFunnels was maybe 2,500, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I went to that. That was huge. So that was pretty massive. So what I'm alluding to is, I'm wondering if you've got any sort of, a couple of sort of emerging ideas that percolated from that conference,
I think the biggest thing, so one of the keynotes was a guy named Roland Frazier, and he had some really interesting implementations. In fact, it was his talk that inspired me to go ahead and adapt some of our processes for that ebook. I never really had a good reason to create an ebook per se. I knew I could, like all the pieces were there. I'm just like, well, I don't have a good reason. But the way that he's using it is for social proof and lead gen, right? So he finds the industry that he wants to go after. He creates an ebook, puts it on Amazon, not with the goal of necessarily selling it, but with the goal of sending people a coupon code or sending them to his book on a particular niche or industry, just to say, look, I wrote the book on it, so you should work with us. I thought that was a really smart idea.
So using your idea that we spoke about 15 minutes ago, using AI to create the ebook in the topic that you want to get known for.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that was cool. There was a little bit of inspiration for me. Also, he was presenting on a tool called HeyGen, which again I've known has existed. I just haven't really dabbled with it because I never really had a good application. But basically, it allows you to create a virtual avatar, right? So I can record 2 minutes of myself talking just like I am here, and it will create a virtual avatar. So now I can actually literally hire a VA to make videos of me speaking. And the way that I want to use that is start doing outreach on LinkedIn and be like, hey, prospect, this is Adam with Enleaf. I'd love to jump on a call. As far as they know, they're talking to me, but literally my VA created that virtual avatar.
Wow, that is cool, man. That is so cool. So oh wow, if you didn't get that, guys, so you do like a 2, 3, 4 minute video, so it knows your nuances and your tones, your accents,
Exactly.
so on, and then you save that, then go in and just type in anything you want, and then it'll create a video of you doing it again.
Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that, Adam. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's a tool called HeyGen. So we're playing with that now and figuring out how we can use that for everything from lead gen to, maybe even reporting. Right now, I can do a preemptive report and have my team put it out like, "Hey, Mr. Client, this is what we're seeing this month. Here's a quick recap. Happy to jump on a phone to expand more." Then it comes from my voice, right? So it's both fascinating and exciting and spooky all at the same time. So
there's so many things you could use that for, like for an eCom store.
Oh yeah,
all their about us videos about different products. If you want to create, it's very laborious and very, we had a client in 2 weeks ago, and we're talking. We've got a videographer and a producer in the business, and the idea is he's going to go there and produce a load of videos for them. But obviously, that might not be necessary in some instances where they can just talk about a product, not have it in show, but they can just talk about a product just by typing it into a box, and then the video gets created.
Well, and I'm really good with stuff like this live interaction, but recently I did a course, and I don't know how some people are, but I get really self-conscious, and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to re-record that, right? So I'm even thinking of maybe I could start using this for the interlude in a course, right? Where you're doing the setup. Now I don't have to record it, and then I just literally type it out, and so there's a lot of really cool things coming down the pike, but those are two of the newest things that we're playing with.
Yeah, they're great. I'm gonna be straight on the HeyGen, because there's another tool we've started to look at called, I think it's called HeyReach. I think it is HeyReach.
Okay.
And that's for LinkedIn outreach as well, but for lead gen for agencies as well. Yeah. So it's interesting if it's from the same company possibly, but with it being called Hey. But anyway, let's go. So obviously, great conference. We talk about conferences a lot, and then I'm always encouraging our listeners to get out there to their industry, in their industry, go and spend a day, a week, and if you can expense a week. Yeah. And where was the Traffic and Conversion Summit?
It was in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Anybody listening? Then you're heading up the marketing for your eCom store. A nice cheeky week in Vegas thrown into the mix. It's always good. So I just love these SEO conferences because they're literally everywhere, aren't they now? And they're just so good.
Well, especially after COVID. In fact, I'm going to be speaking in another conference here soon in March. So towards the end of March, I'll be in Poland for anyone that wants to get adventurous. There's going to be conference down there, but since COVID, there's it seems like there's an SEO conference every single week. It's nuts. I can't even keep up. I'm going to do Thailand again next year. I booked that, as I mentioned to you before we hit record. But there's just too many options now, which is good. Right. So get yourselves booked in, guys. Not just through the conferences, the SEO ones, but obviously your industry. This is how me and Adam met. So obviously meeting people in your niche, in your industry that are doing maybe a couple of steps ahead of you or are doing some cool stuff in your niche you can learn from. I don't think there's anything better than having a bit of downtime as well while you're there. Having a bit of time to think about the business and, some next steps and a bit of an epiphany quite often. I like going to those events just because they inspire me, right? Especially if you feel like you're kind of getting bored in your business or it feels stale. The best thing you can do is get out of your box and go to a conference and network with other people, get ideas. And then typically that gets me through the next couple months of getting excited about different things. Yeah. So definitely recommend that kind of stuff. It's been huge for us.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with that. So back on the SEO track. So obviously eCom store, you've got a lot of SKUs. You've got a lot of platform forms. We both talk about Shopify. As probably a mainstay for a lot of e-com stores and agencies as well. But when it comes to sort of prioritizing your SEO list, when it comes to e-com stores, what's your sort of go-to? I'm pretty sure at 15 years on the cold face, as it were, you look at an e-com store and straight away, what's your sort of go-to list that you're looking at? and knowing that if those things aren't quite right, you can really have an impact on that store.
Yeah. I think for a lot of e-commerce, they tend to have a pretty, healthy page count. Like if they have a lot of SKUs, I actually get excited. Like when a website has a ton of pages, like that excites me. Typically that means I have more to work with. And usually there's a bit, if not done correctly, means there's a bigger deficit. So next to keyword research and content, which we kind of already touched on, like that's typically the cornerstone. From there, I really like to dive deep into the technical SEO side of things, especially with a store with a lot of SKUs. I know, for instance, with Shopify, for instance, one of the big challenges is it's not a self-hosted platform, right? It's under the control of Shopify. So we have a little less levers to pull when it comes to optimizing load time. So what our team has worked on just this last year, we really worked and spent a lot of time creating a custom scripting optimization process that allows us to control, that footprint, basically through scripting. Otherwise, with a WordPress site, we could do a percentage of that optimization on the server side, right? So really kind of figuring out each platform. And then also, again, we kind of alluded to this too. A lot of the things I see is either the website structure is not conducive to, being crawled, right? Maybe they have a lot of orphan pages. Their hierarchy in their sitemap structure or navigational structure is way too deep, right? Ideally, you want to be able to get to any given page within 3 clicks. That's kind of best practices. And then, we alluded to this earlier, not spending enough time adding text to category and or product pages. Those are the things that I see a lot that can really start to change the outlook for an e-commerce brand, right?
Yeah. No, I'm nodding along. It's like, totally. I think it's the technical one that normally I think, there's all of the above really, but that technical piece can be quite challenging, obviously, if you're on a hosted platform like Shopify. But if you aren't, obviously there's a lot you can do around speed, crawl budget, indexation, the different robots.txt, sitemaps, that type of thing, which I think quite often does get missed. It's quite... Probably 40% of the sites you see. We had a project probably about 4 months ago now, and there's a huge site. They've got, I think, about 180,000 SKUs. Oh, wow. Only 150,000 were indexed. So it's like 30,000 SKUs weren't even in.
Yeah. A lot of missed opportunity there.
Yeah. So they weren't indexed. And then in a similarly we're jumping over to PPC. And I think there was like half of their SKUs weren't in their feed. So if you've got a big store, it's a big problem, when you're thinking about trying to
checking that indexation, all the time, really.
What's your sort of go-to tool set when it comes to sort of technical SEO? Are you Ahrefs and Screaming Frog, Sitebulb, or SEMrush, or what's your...
It's typically a combination of Screaming Frog, SEMrush, and then, of course, Google's tools, Google Search Console and Analytics. Those kind of are the key components for our audits and strategy. Screaming Frog does a lot of the heavy lifting. It's one of the very first tools, SEO tools I've used, and we still use it today. It's not pretty, but it does its job well, right?
It's amazing how sort of reasonable priced as well for those that haven't used it. I think from memory, it's like $150 or something, isn't it? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think I pay $150 a year, and it's kind of the backbone of our audit, but it's by no means the only tool we use, but it does a lot of the heavy lifting.
So jumping back into AI then, one thing that's on my mind is then, okay, so, everyone starts using it, which, those that have got a bit of common sense will have already started using it. Okay. Right. So everyone's, improving their content and building out their pages and their content and their categories and the subcategories, and their SKUs have miraculously gone from zero, an average word count of 20 to now 200. Everyone's, but then everybody, or the majority of sites, start to do that. So obviously it's, it's a similar, we're sort of trying to unlevel the playing field, which is more of a PPC term that we use. But, what's your take on sort of what Google, is there any concerns there that Google may then sort of decide, actually, we've got more of a way of identifying AI sort of driven content, and are they likely to cause, sites problems further down the line when it comes to, more sites having a large volume of AI created content? Should there be a concern there around sort of Google penalizing sites?
I mean, we're not concerned, and that comes with a caveat. Like, if you look at Google and what they say, like their official stance, and this is pretty early on, right, is that they don't care if AI is created with content or by someone in the Philippines or even by, an intern just out of college. Their goal is that the content is quote unquote helpful, right? And there's a lot we can unpack from that, that term helpful and helpful content, which is the moniker that goes around. But on the flip side too, like, in the last couple years, we've had a lot of issues with being able to appropriately index sites inside of Google, right? And Google has, essentially, from my understanding, come out and acknowledged that this is a challenge. People that are in the SEO space have known this for years. Like, it's a never-ending challenge. Seems like it's not getting much better, maybe a little bit, but not much. So it's a known fact that Google has a hard time indexing just the vast amount of content online. And so now you throw in the processing power required for AI and AI detection. If Google has challenges just indexing pure HTML and some JavaScript and some CSS, I don't know how in the world they're going to crawl, index, and parse, the vast amount of AI content. So I think even if they wanted to, I don't think the amount of computational power is even available for them to realistically do that. And I think I don't think it's so much because Google wanted to say, well, we're okay with AI content. I think they had no choice, right? The other flip side too is you can't really, in good conscience, say, hey, we're against AI and also be one of the forerunners of AI technology. While Google has been slow to distributing that to the public, and now they're starting to catch up with the likes of OpenAI and ChatGPT. Google has been on the forefront of AI forever. So it's a little bit of a hypocritical thing to say, well, we can use AI, but you can't. So we're not worried now as so much on Google's stance or other companies, because I think AI is here to stay. I do see, what I have heard one person term as AI inflation, right? This reality that now everybody has the barrier to entry for content creation has gotten much lower. Therefore, everybody has the ability to produce and create more. So that opens up a question of, okay, we have these tools, but how can we still make this content stand out, right? And that's where the introduction of multimedia, purely just getting content that is helpful, right? So maybe that means, a quotation that's unique from a product reviewer or somebody inside the company that can give a custom piece of content that is, from the business. And then there's the other aspect. This is all completely conjecture, but my theory, at least in the short term, is with the sheer expansion of content that is getting put out there, what other levers does Google still control, right? If they can't control how much content is out there, they still maintain a form of paid shrink, right? So they can put more or less weight and value towards things like backlinks and engagement, and even some technical SEO. So we at least in the short term are doubling down on high quality backlink acquisition. Of course, we're trying to multiply the amount of content we put out for our clients without necessarily passing on additional cost. And then also just doing that, tried and true stuff like, maintaining that a brand has, a good brand awareness, that they're capturing that whole idea of EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So those are all things that we keep in mind. There are shifts in how this stuff impacts us, but there's still a lot of the core principles that, if applied, I think will serve you well.
So you're very much a AI flag is up, Adam, and the team at Enleaf are very much all in I think is what we're saying.
We were from the beginning. Yeah. I told our team, I'm like, hey, I'm going to flip a coin here and I might come up on the wrong end, but I don't think I will. And so our team has been using AI content for a long time and not really hiding it. In fact, I was featured early on. This was, I think, it was about a month or two before ChatGPT was released, but I was featured in a Wall Street Journal article because at the time we were using another AI tool, which at that time was relatively I guess groundbreaking or interesting enough for the Wall Street Journal to ask us about it, right? So.
Yeah. No, that's what struck me when you did your presentation when we met, sort of testing a lot of different things. And obviously, you sort of got, I guess, almost like 6-12 months jump on a lot of people, or a lot of agency folk that are now think, oh, we really should be using AI, especially in e-commerce, because obviously they have the sheer volume. Yeah. So a couple of final questions then, Adam. Thank you for your time. Of course. So, it can be, and it is a little bit challenging out there for a lot of store owners. What advice would you give to sort of business owners as a whole around that sort of potentially a year of a little bit more uncertainty, but also I would say a lot of opportunity as well? What advice would you give to those guys?
I think the biggest advice is just to not lose sight of what's happening in your industry, in your space. I think it's always a good idea to be looking at the competition and, kind of looking under the hood and saying, okay, what is the competition doing? And do we need to adjust according to what they're doing? Or do we feel like we're in a good state? What is the market as a whole? Where is it going? Right. So, there's a lot of little things like, when's the last time you went to Google Trends and looked up, your industry or business and kind of analyzed what's happening there? When's the last time you pulled your own audience and customer base and said, hey, what do you see changing in the market? Right. When's the last time you looked at, your competitors and really analyzed like, well, where are they compared to us? I think those little things are, important. We're big proponents too of like self-education, right? So like, I think as a business owner, like you would serve yourself by continuing to learn, especially when it feels uncomfortable or scary. I think for a lot of business owners, especially those that are not maybe in the digital marketing realm, the AI stuff can feel a little bit daunting. But I would just challenge people, don't be afraid of change in technology, because there's only one thing certain, and that's that things will change. Yeah.
I think that's great, because the amount of people that are no doubt working in eCom and working maybe with an agency, and if their agency hasn't recommended maybe some radical change in the last 12, 18 months, or even 3 or 6 months, you might want to think about, having a look at your agency, because, there's so much leverage now that you can have. If you were, just simple, if you were paying for, a monthly fee where you were getting, X amount of content a year ago, well, the reality is that output now should be a lot more.
Right. Well, yeah. And that's a good point too, is like, if you are working with an agency, or even internal talent, I'd ask them like, hey, what's changed in the last 12 months about your job or about your role as an agency? What is your stance on things like AI or changes in the industry, in digital marketing? Like, really understand like how your team members or partners, how they approach changes in technology, and making sure that, they're not doing the same thing they did, 48 months ago, like that they're adapting to things. Right? So,
especially in this game. So, Adam, I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh man, I have so many. It's hard. I know you sent me some questions. I tried to just skim them to keep things organic, but let me think.
Did you take one with you, TNC? Did you read on the way on your travels this last few months?
One of my favorite books is a little bit out there. Not out there, it's just not known. So a lot of people know about the book called I'm blanking the name. Anyway, there's a book called The Law of Success in I think 16 lessons. Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that like I always carry around and revisit. Outside of that, like there's just so many, it's hard for me to say, depending on the topic. I tend to read a lot of like business and personal development books. So that's kind of my forte.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Adam. Thanks for that. Thanks for giving us some nuggets and a lot for our listeners to think about. For those that want to find out more about you, more about Enleaf, what's the best way to do that?
They can do that right through our website. It's enleaf.com. It's ENLEAF.com. Otherwise, they can reach me at adam@enleaf.com or find me across various social media platforms. I'm pretty active on Facebook and LinkedIn, somewhat on Twitter and all the other channels. So
fantastic. Right. Well, hopefully I'll see you again at a conference not too distant future.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll touch base here soon.
Yeah. Nice one. See you, Adam.
See ya. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast. So you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.